on Tuesday, Coach Kevin Stefanski addressing reporters on what the plan is for adding help at the position in the aftermath of the season-ending knee injury suffered by one of the best running backs in football. Here's Coach Stefanski.
Andrew and the personnel department's working through options. You don't, as you know, you don't replace Nick Chubb. That's you just don't do that. Great players in the league. You look around, they go out. It's always not one person that replaces a player of his caliber. So everybody's got to do a little bit more. Got to do a little bit more everywhere. But we'll look at options there in terms of who we bring in.
What they did on Tuesday was they brought in Kareem Hunt. Now, it was widely reported as a visit by Kareem Hunt to the Cleveland Browns. The NFL posts every day its official transactions. There's a tryout report that is a little harder to get. They don't make it freely available. You have to know people, and if you know one person who has access to the thing within the broader NFL structure, you can get it whenever you want it. I have someone who sends it to me. Sometimes it's a day or two late. Sometimes I get it the same day. Happen to get yesterday's on Tuesday for a change. And there's a long list of tryouts on Tuesday. That's typically the day of the week that players are off. So, hey, if you're thinking about hiring somebody who would replace a guy who currently has a job, makes sense to bring him in when that guy's home. Like, the players are off, let's bring in some other players, one of whom or more we might sign to supplant the guys currently on the team. Don't want any awkward moments in the hallway of the potential new guys running into somebody who may get fired. So there were a lot of guys yesterday, as there usually are on Tuesdays, but the Browns had Kareem Hunt on that report, Charean, as a tryout, not a visit. And that's not some minor distinction. Visit implies we're good. We know what you can do. You were here for 4 years. The fact that they brought him in and put him through the paces, and obviously it doesn't say what all he did, but there is a fundamental difference between a tryout and a visit. They brought him in and put him on the field. They aren't ready to just start throwing money at this guy without seeing what he can do. And they haven't signed him yet, but they had him in right away for a tryout. Now, he's from Cleveland. It may have been a quick trip, or maybe they lined it up immediately. GM Andrew Berry gets on the phone after the injury. Kareem Hunt, get to Cleveland tomorrow. We got to see what you can do. But I thought it was significant that it wasn't just a visit. It was reported as a visit. Tryout is different. And it expresses a greater degree of skepticism on the part of the team about where the player currently is. And they just want to make sure he's ready to go if they go ahead and do this, Charean.
Yeah, and Mike, if you go back to the start of free agency, there was that report out of Cleveland that they had no interest in re-signing Kareem Hunt because they felt like that he had lost his speed. And based on what he did last year, it's hard to argue that he hasn't done that. He averaged a career low 3.8 yards per carry, 6.0 yards per catch. He had a long of 24. So he didn't look like the same guy that led the league in rushing in 2017. And as we all know, running backs lose it very quickly. He was 27 when free agency started. He just turned 28. So he's not going to get that speed back. If they felt like he lost his speed in March or April or last season or whenever that was, he's not going to get any faster. But I'm sure the tryout was to see what kind of shape he was in. Can he help us? Of course, he's probably their best option simply because he knows the offense. He knows the coaching staff. He knows most of the players who are there. So that's very helpful to just step in and go. He could probably sign today and be ready to play at least a few snaps, be on a pitch count on Sunday. And they need a running back, and they need a running back quickly because besides Jerome Ford, who's going to be the every down back, the only other guy on their 53-player roster right now at that position is Pierre Strong. So they got to get somebody in there very quickly and up to speed.
Strong had a short yardage touchdown on Monday night, but the bulk of the statistics went to Jerome Ford, and Stefanski said Ford is the guy for now. And look, that's if they're thinking about adding someone, part of the leverage to get the best possible deal, whether it's a trade with the Rams for Cam Akers, who is yet again in the doghouse. This is an annual thing with the Rams now. Doghouse, not playing, try to trade him. And last year, the story ended with, can't trade him, bring him back. Hey, we like him again. And now we're back in the whatever the reason, whoever's at fault, Cam Akers and the Rams are not on the same page, and he's available. But the question is, what do you give up for Cam Akers? This is the other side of the coin for the Browns, because we were talking yesterday, Chris and I, about the possibility of them making a phone call to the Colts and pursuing Jonathan Taylor. The Browns are very committed to analytics. And if you're very committed to analytics, you're not giving up significant trade assets for a running back. You're not giving up significant money for a running back. You are going to go next man up. You are going to go, let's see who's out there. You are going to go, the cost of any guy we can find on the street, dollar for dollar, means more, makes more sense, is smarter from an analytics standpoint than giving up too much, because the difference from good to great isn't worth what you're going to sacrifice to get that player. So I think Jonathan Taylor, it's not going to happen. Cam Akers, maybe, but it's got to be on the Browns' terms. Kareem Hunt, and maybe putting him through the tryout, Charean, is a way to get him to humble a little bit his demands. One of the reasons he's available is he wants too much money. He was hopscotching all over the place right about the time training camp got going. Remember, he was with New Orleans and was going to sign with New Orleans, but then supposedly got a phone call, major twist, going to Indy, and he's going to sign there because they offered more money right there on the spot. Hey, hold the phone. Don't go try out for the Saints. Got more money for you in Indy, and then never signs with Indy. And then visits the Vikings, never signs with the Vikings. I think maybe guy who was the NFL's leading rusher as a rookie in 2017 had an off-field issue that washed him out of Kansas City, landed in Cleveland the next year. It may just be one of those situations where he needs a dose of reality before he accepts what he can get. And hey, there may be a floor on what he'll take. I think for plenty of running backs, especially when it's a physically demanding position like that can get your knee completely wrecked in the snap of a finger. There may be an amount where he just says, I'm not doing it for that. I'm not putting my body through the risk and the pounding for that. I need more to put myself through that. Whatever the reason, he hasn't accepted any offers, and that's the big reason he's available for the Browns. But we'll see today, tomorrow. If it's going to happen, it's got to happen. Like you said, they got two guys. They got to make a move. They got to do something. Whether it's sign Hunt, trade for Akers, or just pick up the phone and call somebody else. Leonard Fournette's available. Or just some running back that you only heard of if you were a fan of his college team. One of those guys who's floating around. Just bring him in and put him at number 3 on the depth chart. Have him do special teams. But let's go. We need somebody soon because the next game is coming.
Well, here's the problem for the Browns, Mike. They're one of the few teams in the league that had a workhorse running back. Most go running back by committee, and this totally changes their offense. There just aren't that many running backs who are as important to their offense as Nick Chubb was. In 2022, he had almost 57% of their carries, 61% of their rushing yards. He was involved in 29% of their total plays. He accounted for almost 30% of their total yards. 30% of their total yards. That's an incredible number for a running back. So this is going to put more on Deshaun, and they're going to have a running back by committee. And the problem, as you said, with Jonathan Taylor, not only analytics, but to me, you only go trade for a running back because Jonathan Taylor fits their offense perfectly. He's what we're talking about. He can be that workhorse. But you only go trade for a running back and pay a running back if you think he's the one person that can put you over the top. In 2 games with Nick Chubb, this looks nothing like a playoff team. Forget a Super Bowl team. This looks nothing like a playoff team. So you're certainly not going to go get a Jonathan Taylor and give up the compensation and the money it's going to take to get him, because if you're going to make that trade, you're not making it for just 1 year. You're going to sign him, obviously, for longer. And you got Nick Chubb, by the way, coming back. So none of that, hopefully coming back, none of that makes sense. But if I'm the Browns and I've now got a running back by committee, I'm going to bring in Kareem Hunt if I think he can play even just a little bit. And I'm probably going to go trade for somebody, a Cam Akers. I would make a phone call to the 49ers. If they're not going to use Elijah Mitchell, I don't think they're going to trade him. But if they're not going to use him, he got 0 snaps on Sunday. I'm at least going to pick up the phone and say, hey, would you have any interest in trading Elijah Mitchell to us? But somebody like that, maybe even a 3rd or 4th string running back with another team. But to me, they've got to get more running backs in there because this has got to be a running back by committee now.
And you make a great point about Chubb's workload, and his importance to the team goes beyond that. He's the heart and soul of that team.
Absolutely.
One of the reasons they've defied their approach to analytics when it comes to Chubb, they pay him 8 figures per year because he transcends his position. He is the leader of the offense. He is the guy that stabilizes everything, especially with all the stuff Deshaun Watson has gone through. And maybe that's one of the reasons this team isn't looking like a playoff team, because Deshaun Watson isn't looking like the guy that he was with the Texans. And it's still early, but we're creeping toward the point where we go up or down on whether or not this was a good trade for the Browns. And, you know, we don't have a long grace period anymore for making these assessments, whether it's a quarterback who was drafted, a quarterback who was signed in free agency, or a quarterback for whom a team trades. But it's starting to just the eyeball test. Like, this isn't the guy that used to run around and make things happen for the Texans. And maybe he could get it back, but maybe he won't. He was drafted the same year as Kareem Hunt, and the legs maybe start to go. You don't play for a full year. Your life is in turmoil through every fault of your own. But, yeah, it just could be that Watson isn't the guy. And the Taylor angle, if you make that move, it is over with Nick Chubb. It's over. And it may be anyway. $11.775 million next year, coming off of that knee injury. He's going to have to take a hell of a lot less for the Browns to bring him back next year. He kind of knew what was coming when all the stuff was happening in training camp about running back pay. He said, you know, I'm good for this year, but I know this could be me next year that's facing one of these issues of a team just saying, sorry, we're not paying you anymore. We're going to cut you like the Vikings did with Dalvin Cook. So I feel like that's coming anyway. But if they would trade for Jonathan Taylor, on top of the fact that it defies the very heavy John D. Podesta analytics embrace that the Browns have been in the middle of for 6 years now, it's a very strong message to Nick Chubb. You ain't coming back next year if they would do that. And that's probably another reason why they won't do it. You're making a long-term commitment to a running back out of urgency, not out of any type of planning and strategy, and that's D. Podesta's title, Chief Strategy Officer. You don't implement a strategy in 24 hours that ties your hands for 3 or 4 years. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.